I sit down, she does some fortune telling on me, and then she goes, okay, it's now time for the races. I knew something very weird was happening. So I end up typing in how to heal spiritual problems. And this first search came up, which was Indian astrologers can heal demons and black magic. All of a sudden, the bottom right corner of my t-shirt starts to light on fire. The t-shirt starts throwing him around the room, and I go to this Korean barbecue, and there are these guys there that I've never met. And they go, do you want us to bring you to church this Sunday? And the moment I step foot into this place, I literally get struck by something, and I then start to hear this audible voice. It said, this is where you belong, these are your people, and this is where you're gonna get healed.
Hey everyone, my name's Dan from Deliverance Down Under, and we're a full-time evangelism ministry with a focus on street evangelism, digital evangelism, healing, deliverance, and discipleship. And right now we're on the move to capture this powerful move of God that's happening all around the world. And we need your support. So if you feel led to support us with a donation, head to deliveranceDownUnder.com for a once-off or a monthly donation to keep our ministry going. So that will cover living expenses, travel costs, equipment, and software expenses. Guys, we appreciate your support so much. Enjoy the video. Thanks. God bless.
Hi guys, my name is Jamie Zhu. I'm a 31-year-old full-time social media content creator from Sydney. I went basically from a life of growing up as an atheist, dabbling in worldly, semi-professional football, soccer that is, to then finding social media success, experiencing materialism through that, to then becoming demonically possessed, to then now finding Jesus and him, thankfully, saving my life. So basically, I was born in 1993 in Sydney, and my mum is Australian and Hungarian background, and my father is Chinese. So he moved to Australia, from China to study English, and my parents met and had me, in 1993. Basically, I grew up from the ages of sort of 0 to 4 with both parents living in a remotely or somewhat of a stable household, you could say. My parents were together, but there was a lot of fights, arguments where they ended up divorcing when I was actually 4 years old. When my parents divorced, my dad ended up moving back to China, where he's from, pursuing a film directing career over there, and my mum stayed in Sydney to raise me as a single parent for the rest of my childhood. I think when I was growing up, sort of living without a dad for so long really affected me in many ways, because although we were still in contact over the phone every single night we would talk, I was missing that father figure in my life that would help me, I guess, become a man and understand how my identity was, shaped in that way to some degree. I was never brought up religious or with any sort of faith besides my mum teaching me that the universe is there and there's some sort of higher power. But yeah, I guess I really had a lot of struggles growing up without a father in my life. I think I was very blessed in a lot of ways. I was blessed with an amazing mother who loved me and cared for me and never neglected me. But I always definitely felt neglected by my father because he just wasn't here. And so I was always trying to fill a void that he left within my soul in my life, where I had to sort of prove myself to him, even though it was from a distance. So what I ended up doing was I started to really chase validation from a very young age. So I battled with this my whole life. So I'd seek validation through being popular at school, being funny, being sort of outrageous. I was very extroverted, so I had a big social life, and that was really my identity at the time. I ended up developing a very strong passion for soccer, football. I eventually got to a level where I was kind of 1 or 2 leagues below the A-League, so I was becoming quite a good player. I started to develop this really bad performance anxiety and this really bad self-doubt about my performance and if I could play well or not. And this came with the high level of pressure that was placed upon me from the game in itself, because when you get to those really high levels, there's a lot of pressure. Your teammates can be your best friends for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. But once you make that bad pass in one game of the season where it loses the game for the entire team, they become your worst enemy. Parallel to this struggle that I was experiencing through soccer, I started experiencing some success in my social life. I became very popular in the social side of things at school. I used to go to a lot of parties, the girls and all that sort of social life stuff kicked in as well. And so I almost developed this kind of social skill where I would use it as a mask to cover up what I was experiencing in soccer. I then developed this kind of persona on top of the social life I already had, and on top of the person that everyone knew me to be in my friends in my social circles, but now all of a sudden I had developed this really funny kind of character, you could say. And for some weird reason, I just really dove into this. I then became the class clown. I then became really naughty in school. I then became, I'm not going to lie, like the girls liked that side of me. It was always like a bad boy look. And I don't know where this came from, because I'd never had this in me. I was always a pretty normal, sort of confident guy in school. But then this whole added comedy element just came at me out of nowhere. And so what I would do is I would use this comedy that I had sort of developed in my life to then mask all my problems. And then that became my identity, being the funny guy. Fast forward a couple of years, I'm still trying the whole soccer thing. I moved to London for a year to try and pursue professional football over there. And I do, start succeeding. But then what ends up happening is, once again, the inconsistency starts kicking in. I was there as a 19-year-old by myself, no friends, no family, no money. And I just got to a point where I was like, you know what? Like, is this whole life chasing this football dream even worth it? I had to make a choice. And I remember just one day I had this huge opportunity to try out for a English Premier League team in the under 23s. And I was so stressed out. All I was doing was crying on my bed. I locked myself in my room. I just had no idea what to do, because I had so much pressure on myself and I didn't know what to do with it. I ended up going to this trial, having the worst training session of my entire life, embarrassing my agent that got me the trial in the first place. And I was back to square one. I started to dabble in therapy and counseling and a bit of new age, because I literally, from this bipolar personality I had, where I was all these things at once, and one day I was doing well in something that the next day I wouldn't, it made me literally think something was wrong with me. So I started to go into crystals. I started to go into spiritual breath work. I started to go into manifestation, because I guess my mum had a bit of a background in there, so I got introduced to it that way. And ironically as well, whenever I went to these healers, they'd always charge me a lot of money. Like a session for spiritual breath work, which lasted about an hour, would cost me like almost $200. Going to these retreats where they'd use crystals and do this rebirthing therapy to try and heal your past trauma by screaming into a towel and kicking and punching and all these things. And all that stuff was also very expensive to me at the time. And I think that it just basically opened up a whole other spiritual door that I had no idea about. So this was all happening at once. My life was extremely, incredibly chaotic. I was in England still, and I was still playing football, but one day I just decided to quit. I said, you know what? My life has just been an absolute mess until this point. I don't want to continue this football anymore. What happened was, my mum and I were always very close, and from Australia, she was saying to me, hey, do you reckon like it's all worth it? Do you think you need to be doing this? And I said, no, let's just quit. And so I found myself in England by myself at 19 years old, living in like a box room. I was working like 5 jobs. I was working as a kitchen hand in hotels. I was working in a health food store. I was working at an ice cream shop, burger shop, handing out flyers at a train station. I was doing everything. And I was there, and all of a sudden I'm just like, wait, so I'm literally here for no reason. So when I decided to quit, I made the choice. I'm like, you know what? That's it. And my mum ended up sending me this book. And my mum, as I said, is very into kind of like spiritualism. So I was before, very into natural health. And she sent me this book by this man who had written something called Instructions for a New Life. And as cliche as it sounds, this book actually kind of changed my life for the better. It was a book where it said, write down things that you feel like you're naturally talented at. Then it said, write down some things that people always tell you that you're good at. So I wrote some things down. And then the next instruction was, try and somehow match those things, and this will potentially be the catalyst for your transformation for the next part of your life. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, you know what, like, I've got this funny side. Like, I know that this is an area of my life where God's blessed me in, for example. And I know that it's easy for me to have this persona, and people will also tell me that I'm half decent at this kind of thing. And I didn't know what to do with it. So I remember just sitting in my bedroom for a couple of days. And what do you do when you've got nothing else to do? You go online and watch videos. And back then, the only platform that had videos on that was accessible to people was YouTube. So I'm sitting on YouTube in London in my box room, where there's some random American guy who's got some working visa smoking outside, and I've got like random Polish and Indian people in other rooms. Like, it was a shared house, and I'm just there watching YouTube. I didn't know what I was doing. Lo and behold, I find these videos of these guys in Australia that were doing prank videos. And these guys would go out in public in Sydney, in Melbourne, in Brisbane, and literally do these videos where they would just like embarrass themselves in public. For example, some of them would make like really loud, crazy noises in public. Some of them would just like fall over in public and capture people's reactions. Some people did like stunts where they'd go into the cinema and pretend like they pooped their pants and run out and get people's reactions. I don't know. It was just those sorts of videos I came across. And the moment I saw them, something lit up inside of me. And I don't know if this is from God or not, maybe not, but I heard this voice saying, this is exactly what you have to do. And I was so excited. I'm like, I cannot wait to get back to Sydney and just pursue this thing, which everyone's going to think I'm crazy to do, but I just believe that it's going to work. So I literally remember, this is 2014, and back then we used to use travel agents still. So I went to the travel agent down the road and I said, hey, I've got to get a ticket back to Sydney ASAP. I got to leave London. I got to go straight back. And I said, how much will it be? And I think it was something around like £1,000 it was going to cost me. I literally opened up my bank account and lo and behold, there was just enough money in my account when after the transaction was over, I had 5 pence left in my bank account. So it was just enough. So I get on that plane and I just literally dip back to Sydney. And on the plane, I just remember, I think I was doing some manifestation. I was just like visualizing all these funny videos I was going to do back in Sydney. I was going to go buy this video camera from JB Hi-Fi. I looked everything up. I just knew exactly what I was going to do. However, I hadn't even told anyone I was coming back. So I get back. I told my mum, sorry. I get back and my mum picks me up from the airport and she goes, so darling, what are you going to do? Like, are you going to go back to uni? Like, you're 19, 20 years old now. Where's your life going to be headed towards? And I go, no, mum, I'm going to start making these stupid videos on YouTube for a career. And she's like, oh, okay. Like, I guess I support you. And I was like, damn, that's a good mum right there, you know? Get home. I'm like, I should probably tell my dad I'm back in Australia. So I call my dad up in China. I go, Dad, I'm back in Australia and I've quit soccer. He's like, what? He's like, you've been trying to make it as a pro footballer for 9 years. You're just going to quit like that? I go, yes, but I've got something better I'm going to do. He goes, what is it? I go, well, there's this thing called YouTube. And bear in mind, my dad's in China. So YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and all these platforms are blocked. So he doesn't have any idea of what social media is at the time. But he's also been in the film industry for 30 years. So he knows what that's all about. Yeah, so there's this new thing called YouTube. And I'm basically going to make these really stupid prank videos in public where I embarrass myself and fall over and make all these stupid noises in public and hopefully get a career out of it. Bro, the guy literally for the next 2 hours screams at me like any Chinese parent would. I had the phone like 2 meters away from my ear. I was getting traumatized. I was getting slapped over the phone. Like I could freaking feel it fist punching my face even though he wasn't even there. And he essentially said, do not do this. You are going to ruin your life. Because I've been in this field, I know what can happen. So I go, yeah, all good, Dad. Yeah, no worries. I'll just go to uni and that's it, right? He goes, yeah. I'm like, yeah, cool. See you later. Bye. Hang up the phone. For the next 2 years, I put everything into these prank videos. I just go full send. I just do not care about what anyone thinks. I start going to universities 3 times a week. I start going to these lectures, doing these stupid stunts in front of like everyone there, falling over, making these noises. I'm like literally standing up on tables and chairs in libraries, just doing stupid things, just the most obnoxious things you could ever imagine. And that's what I did for the next 2 years. I went to uni as well, got like half a degree, but I was obsessed with this YouTube thing. And I was obsessed with, I guess, the fun and the thrill, but I was also obsessed with trying to be famous. That was at the very bottom line of why I was doing this, 100%. And I didn't know why I always wanted to be famous. I thought it was normal. I had heard people say, I always wanted this as well. And I used to think that was success, money and fame and women and status was success. That's what I used to think because the world teaches you that. So I was chasing this thing. After a couple of years of doing this, I ended up finding some success when I found Facebook videos. And I started to get millions of followers on Facebook. My life just changed overnight from being this kid just doing these dumb videos to then being someone that people that I didn't even know knew me. So this started the next chapter of my life where I was really experiencing like the first or second wave of Australian social media success. And so I started to get all these followers on Facebook, millions and millions. And then I started to, get recognized everywhere I went in the street, people mobbing me, like literally circling me, asking for photos. The women came just nonstop. They just wanted to sleep with me because of my social status. I started getting, deals with companies, brand deals, money. In such a short time, after only 2 or 3 years of doing social media, I ended up getting exactly what I had always dreamed of. And it was funny because I remember like having all that. And what was ironic about achieving all these things was that I thought when I became successful, I had some status, famous, rich, all these things, I would be happy finally. And that's what the world teaches you, that as a man especially, this is what will make you happy. But I was actually the most depressed, the most anxious, the most unfulfilled, the most pessimistic I'd ever been in my entire life. Forget the soccer stuff. Like, this was a whole different level. But why was it that, just being real, like I would go out anywhere in Australia, overseas, in a lot of countries as well, like be glorified by all these people wanting photos with me, saying that like they almost, it literally felt like a form of worship. And I didn't even know why they were doing it. I didn't understand it, but I had that. I had, the money was coming in. I had all these women just flocking. So how come I had all that, which is what the world promises as success and happiness, but I was still so broken? And it got me thinking, I'm like, this is all it is? Like, what do I do now? Do I just try and chase more fame, more money, more women, more success? So that's what I did, because I didn't know any better. So I'm doing this, and I'm doing more crazy videos, and the stakes are getting higher to the point where like I'm risking my own life in some stunts because I'm just trying to get the views. And then I find this group of friends who are also in the social media spotlight, and they're also doing crazy things like jumping off bridges and doing all these things that could literally lead to their own deaths. And I thought, oh no, like they're getting all these views, now I've got to do something better. So it was this never-ending rabbit hole of trying to chase success, chase all these things that the world promises you as contentment and satisfaction in life, which was just a complete fallacy, which I realized very soon after. And what was also so strange about this period of my life was that I was going so much harder into New Age spirituality. I was not only just doing the spiritual breath work now. I was not only just doing the manifestation. I was now doing astral projecting, where I'd literally rise out of my body and just see where I ended up in my subconscious and just land there and have all these weird spiritual things. I started getting into psychedelics. I was doing drugs at the club a lot of weekends. I was sleeping around like you would not believe. Like, it was just nuts. And I thought, well, maybe like the next girl will make me satisfied, or the next. And it just never, ever worked. I started to do energy healing work. I started to do hypnotherapy work. But there was always just something wrong with me. And what was wrong with me, I felt had just been like a curse I had my whole life, because it happened in soccer. It happened in my social life to some degree. It's now happening in social media. Like, just my whole life was just a massive bipolar mess. So 2020 comes around, and this is when COVID hit, obviously. And my mum in November of 2020 got diagnosed with a meningioma, which is a benign brain tumor. And they had to rush her into hospital. They had to basically push her to the front of the queue because her brain tumor was so large that the doctors weren't even sure how she hadn't had seizures or how she hadn't passed away from it yet. As I said to you guys before, I never knew how to be a man. I was very emotional because the New Age taught me to be very emotional, trust my feelings. Whatever felt right was the truth. Subjective truth was reality, and I could be whatever I wanted to be. So at this time when my mum was going through this surgery, as an only child, it was very hard for me because I was already going through all this chaos in my life, but I was also very unaware and underdeveloped in what it meant to be able to hold the fort down in the family. I'm not blaming myself for going through a hard time, but I do know better now how to implement certain things into my life for me to get through things in a better way than just be emotional, as a man especially. But back then I had no idea. So I'd be crying a lot. I'd be victimizing myself, why me, poor me, all these things that the New Age literally teach you. Through the grace of God, her surgery was successful and she got out of surgery. But I just remember after this surgery, I had such a deep feeling of depression. I fell into a very big depression. And when this would happen to me, which was quite regularly during the time, my escape was partying with women. So what I did was I decided to move to Melbourne. And I moved to Melbourne back and forth because partying was my escape down there. So I moved back and I thought, you know what? I'll just clear up my emotions and have a good time and surely that will fix my problems. And so I went there and I did all that. And it didn't work. And this is the thing about what the world tells you. It's like, have a drink, man. Like, you'll feel better, have a drink, or just let loose for a while. You know, you deserve it. You need it. Just do whatever you feel like doing. Just have a break. And that's what I believed. And I did all those things, but it left me even more broken, more depressed, and more anxious on what was going to happen next. I then was seeing this one girl in February, March 2021. And this was the first time I opened up to anyone about what I was really going through. And something that I had always gone through my whole life, amongst the depression, the anxiety, the unfulfillment, the chaos, the bipolar, was I had chronic OCD. So I would be like the biggest hypochondriac. Every time I'd get like a little itch in my throat or every time I'd feel a pain anywhere, I would go worst case scenario and literally will that thing into existence almost. And so this OCD would just shatter my life. I would have a thought and I'd start ruminating over the thought and it'd replay in my head over and over and it would ruin my life. It would literally be this tangible voice I could hear saying, oh yeah, but what if this happens? Oh, what if that? What if this? And I kid you not, it plagued me for so many years and I could never shake it. I went to more New Age people, couldn't resolve it. And the problem with my life at this point was that I really believed my own thoughts. I trusted every thought that came into my brain, positive and negative, and if one of them scared the living daylights out of me, I would believe it. So I was going through all this stuff at the time, and I opened up to this one girl I was seeing. I go, hey, look, I got to be honest with you. I'm going through all this stuff. I need help. And she said, oh, I reckon I can help you. Have you ever heard of something called Reiki healing? And I go, I have actually, but I've never done it, but I've wanted to do it for a long time. Do you know someone? She goes, yeah, I actually do. I know this woman and my whole family have been going to her for years and years. And this woman's really powerful because a lot of the time when I go to see her, she lives in a house in the suburbs of Melbourne. Sometimes as she's doing the Reiki, all the car sirens in the street suddenly start going off. And I go, oh, so this woman knows what she's doing, eh? I'm like, sign me up, I'm down. And when I tell you this was the single worst decision I have ever made in my entire life, I'm not exaggerating. So a couple of weeks later, I go see this woman. And I remember entering her house. She opened the door. This kind of like 45-year-old woman. She seemed nice, Australian. And she goes, hi, welcome to the Reiki. So I walk in the door and the first thing I remember is that this literal tangible energy hits me in the face. Like, you know how you're around someone, you feel their energy, like they give off a vibe. This house, I walk into it and this energy literally hits me in the face. I can't describe it. But the energy felt nice. And so I was like, okay, cool. This must be what the Reiki is. So I sit down, she does some fortune telling on me. She looks around me. She starts trying to release emotions out of my body. And then she goes, okay, it's now time for the Reiki. And all this woman does is she lies me down in a massage bed. I'm on my back. And she puts her hand, one hand like this, two hands like this in a triangle on the back of my head for about 15 minutes. She then places one of her hands on my chest for 15 minutes. And then she waves two of her hands around this area for another 15 minutes. And I remember being in this session and I knew something very weird was happening. I couldn't describe it. I couldn't shake it. But when I was going through this session, I had all these intrusive thoughts all of a sudden just hit me. And as I said before, I believed all my thoughts. So if I would have some weird thought, just some spontaneous thing that pops into my brain, I'd believe it and I would completely focus on it and then ruin my life. And this was happening during the session. And so I essentially wake up from the session 45 minutes later. And she goes, okay, the Reiki's finished. We're done. How do you feel? And I go, look, I was thinking some like really dark things in that session. Do you know why? And she goes, oh, and I told her what it was. And when I tell you these were dark, I'm talking dark. I've never in my entire life had any of these thoughts ever, full stop. And I tell these thoughts and she looks at me and she goes, oh, that's lovely. That's just the Reiki doing its thing. And this is just you being who you truly are. And I go, what are you on about? And I'm sorry, but I'm not ready to tell you guys what these thoughts are. Maybe one day, but it was dark. And I'm like, no. Like, this is not right. Like, what's going on? Oh, it's just the Reiki working. You might feel a bit strange for the next few days, dehydrated. Just drink some water. You'll be sweet. I go, okay, cool. And I drive back to my apartment in Melbourne. And I just remember thinking like, am I in a dream right now? I just felt so off. I was scheduled to play tennis with my friends that day. I had to cancel because I just felt so strange. And I remember I went to this furniture store, Domain, in QV shopping center in Melbourne. And I just remember getting there. I was trying to buy pillows because I moved into my new apartment on the same day as the Reiki session. And I remember when I got to this furniture store, all of a sudden I felt this like really weird like ball just manifest in the middle of my chest. Think of when you've ever felt really depressed or frustrated or just down and you had this sinking feeling in like the pit of your stomach. I just got this from somewhere, but it was almost like in the shape of a ball, which I felt I had to burp out, but I couldn't. Like it was something just stuck there. But it was a horrible emotion. I can't even begin to describe how horrible it was. The next thing I noticed was like, I started to hear these voices in my head tell me things about myself that were incredibly dark. And I'm like, what is going on? I just did this Reiki session. I thought it'd help me, but it's made me 20,000 times worse. That night I went to bed. And as I'm in bed, I start feeling this tingling sensation around this area, which I've never, ever in my entire life felt, ever. It almost felt like ants crawling in my pants. Legitimately, I can't describe it any other way. But then I would be rocked by these very, very dark, dirty thoughts as well, which I've never in my entire life thought of either. And it was almost like someone was putting something into my head, which wasn't from me, because this just wasn't me, full stop. And it played me the whole night. I remember then having these thoughts and then these tingles, and then I would like be woken up a couple of times being stabbed by something, and then I felt like I was being suffocated by something, and then I start having like these other voices telling me to kill myself. And it was just, I just remember this night was the worst night of my life. And it was weird because then I heard this weird Bruno Mars song play in the background, like this creepy, that song, it's like, I'm gonna leave the door open, I'm gonna leave the door, that one, just playing in my head as this whole thing is happening. And I'm like, something is not right. I wake up next morning and I'm like, what is going on? And then I'm like, okay, I got to distract myself. So I start driving to the gym. I start trying to work. But as I'm driving, as I'm trying to do my daily tasks, I'm hit with these thoughts again. And I'm like, what is going on? These are not my thoughts. And I'm trying to get rid of the thought. I go, no, this isn't welcome here, in the sort of new agey way. Like, no, like my intention is this and you are not welcome. Go back to the place you came from. But every time I would say this to the thought, do you know what would happen? I would get stabbed by something. Like it was punishing me for not wanting the thought. I kid you not. And this lasted for so long. I was in physical pain for days and days and days, weeks and weeks and weeks, just from thoughts. I don't know how I can even describe it any clearer. Thoughts would come, I'd say, no, sorry, but like you're punished for it. It was just crazy. I then, as I said before, started getting these nighttime attacks where I'd be woken up about an hour after going to bed being stabbed by something. And I had to call the ambulance multiple times that year. They'd bring me to hospital, they couldn't find anything. I then started to develop a compulsion out of nowhere to end my life. And even before, when I was going through all this chaos in my life, I was never suicidal, ever. I always was, optimistic. I always knew that there was hope in the future, even though I was going through these things. But I started hearing this voice say, no, jump off the 25th floor of your balcony, go into the kitchen, stab yourself with a knife, like literal audible voices in my head telling me to kill myself. I then would wake up every morning and I'd have this weird, like, presence just kind of come over me, where I'd start throwing the pillow around, kicking, screaming, and I'd literally start roaring like something was inside of me, which I had no idea about. And I'd have these tantrums in the morning. Then I'd go to my phone and I'd go onto Facebook Messenger and start messaging my mum saying, ha ha ha, Mum, I'm going to kill myself today. You're going to have no son by the end of today. Ha ha, like really evil. And I knew this wasn't me, but for some reason, I just did it. Like I didn't know what came over me. And then what would she do? She'd get all scared and she'd be like, she'd call some of my friends to come over to my house. And then there'd be these weird occasions where every Sunday I'd have something called a freak out, where for some weird reason on Sundays, it was the worst day, where I just lose the plot. I'd start throwing things around, trashing my own apartment and just running away and escaping and driving somewhere. And my mum would be like, are you okay? Because she'd check up on me like every hour during this time. And I wouldn't reply to her. Then she'd get all my friends to come look for me. So I was like a missing person every single Sunday. She'd often have to get cops to rock up to my door. I wouldn't be there. Like the fire brigade even came once. It was just nuts. Like I was almost psychopathic to the point where I lost all control of myself and I would just disappear and just want it all to end. And this was happening for a long, long time. And I'm talking months and months and months of just this chaos, not knowing what's going on. And everyone around me also not knowing what was going on. I obviously was trying to help myself. So I'd go to more New Age people to try to fix myself. I went to see like some Maori healer once. I then went to more Reiki people. I then went to I went to psychologists, I went to counselors. And every single person told me that what I was experiencing was all in my head. Not one of them affirmed that it could be demonic or spiritual. No, it's all in your head. You need to go get some meds because you've got OCD or anxiety or depression or whatever it is. I started to go on the internet and look for guns. So I'd be typing in like how to find a gun, how to get a gun license. I would be looking up, like it's graphic, but literal spots to take my own life. I looked up the Westgate Bridge. I looked up all these places because the pain was just so hard to deal with amongst all these people saying, we don't know what's wrong with you. It's like there was no hope. I was doing sessions with this clinic called OCD LA 3 times a week, which would cost me $250 a session, with this OCD specialist who got me to do exposure therapy for all these things. I was speaking to shamans. I was going to more energy healers. I was spending time on the phone with these people. I did a Reiki course to try and balance my chakras because maybe my chakras were out of balance. I went to everyone and still no one knew what was wrong with me. Not one person. They just said, oh, we don't know. We've never seen this before. Just accept it. And so this kind of brought me to a point where I got desperate. And I said to my mum, Mum, I'm sorry, but you don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. No one knows what to do. So if I'm not healed by December 2022, I'm 100% taking my own life. And when a mother hears that from her son, you couldn't imagine how she felt. She was scrambling, running around with this deadline I'd given her, saying, Mum, if I'm not healed by this day, there's an ultimatum. I'm taking my own life. And it was so hard for her because she was looking everywhere and she just simply could not find a solution. And it got so bad to the point where this was just constant, that I actually, in May of 2021, ended up having some sort of, you could call attempts to take my own life. I was in Sydney for my mum's birthday and it just got too much. And I said, Mum, I'm going for a walk. And I sprinted down to the bottle shop, BWS in Chatswood, and I just got like a flask of Smirnoff. Bought it. They didn't ask me any questions why I wanted it. I ran off. I sprinted to Chatswood Oval near where I grew up. And I just started sculling this vodka. And as I'm running through the Oval to this spot that I had intended on, hopefully at the time, like take my own life, I ended up writing like a suicide note on my Instagram story. And I wrote, guys, I don't know what to do. A couple of months ago, I did this Reiki healing session. And ever since then, my whole life has changed. I can't take this anymore. Someone take care of my mum. Goodbye. And I posted this note to my close friend story on Instagram. And I sprint up to this area close to these train tracks in this oval. And my intention was to just get so drunk that I would end up fleeing myself across the train tracks and taking my own life. And I just remember after I posted this story, a couple of minutes later, I'm just receiving phone call after phone call after phone call after phone call from all my friends, from people I hadn't heard from for years, and just saying, where are you? Don't do it, please. And what was ironic was the night before this, I was at karaoke with my friends. I was out partying. I was acting normal, and no one could tell something was wrong with me, but little did they know that I was just in such deep hurt. And then I remember just being so blind drunk, having all these phone calls and I wasn't answering, to then seeing my mum call me. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll answer. And I answer. And she goes, where are you? I've had all your friends call me. Please, please, please don't do anything stupid. Please, I love you so much. We're going to get through this together. Where are you? And I told her, I said, I'm here. And it was almost like I blinked, and all of a sudden I see one of my best mates, Chris, sprinting across the oval to me. I see my mum sprinting from that direction. I look behind me. There's like two cop cars and then 3 ambulances behind me. And I see my friends, one of my friends, Danny, who's come up from Fairfield to chat. So I see this girl I was seeing at the time come from Earlwood. Like, everyone's there from all over Sydney. And I just remember like my mate Chris hugging me, and he's like, bro, I'm so glad you didn't do anything stupid. I promise you, we're going to get through this together. Please, like, I love you. Like, please, I love you. Don't do something stupid. Like, we've got this. And yeah, I went to hospital. They did a mental health assessment on me that day. And in half an hour, they discharged me saying, no, he's all good. You're good to go home. And it was just like, one thing after the other, just hopelessness. No one knew the cure. No one knew what was wrong with me. This was the first time I've ever seen this in our entire lives. It was just so much hopelessness. I just could not understand what to do. I remember like I still had this December date in my mind. And I was like, yeah, I'm still going to stick to this, Mum. I'm sorry. Like, if I'm not healed by December 2022, I'm gone. And I'm like, you know what? Like, this must be a spiritual problem. So I end up typing in how to heal spiritual problems, black magic, whatever it was. And this first search came up, which was Indian astrologists can heal demons and black magic. And I'm like, okay, what's this? And so I just called the guy. I'm like, hey, I got a problem. This has been happening. Can you help me? And he goes, yeah, I can help you. And he's like, you got to send me your full name, date of birth, and a photo of yourself, and I'll do a spiritual reading on you, so I can figure out what's wrong with you. And so I basically give him all these details, and he comes back to me saying, guess what? I found something. You've got to come see me in my office straight away, because I think I found what's wrong with you. And I remember just dropping everything. I zoom into his office, and he brings me into this kind of like prayer room. And this guy is like quite a large Indian man. I think he's Hindu. And he basically says to me, I can see you've got some dark outline over your body. And I know what to do, and I can help you. And I said, phew. I was like, thank God, because this is the first person in my entire journey that even remotely alluded to being able to help me in this situation. And so I'm like, okay, how do we do this? Let's just do it. Like, I'm keen. He goes, well, before we do it, it's going to cost you $1,000. So I'm like, cool. I didn't care. Go to the ATM, give him the money, and then we start the process. So this guy gets me to do a whole bunch of things. He gives me a red handkerchief with this raw rice in the middle and says, I want you to go to St. Kilda Beach tonight and do this Hindu prayer and throw this rice in the ocean. He then gave me this like weird gold pendant that I had to wear on me at all times. He made me wash myself in the shower with a massive glass jar of turmeric infused water. He made me do these prayers at night. He made me sleep with something. It was just crazy. And the whole premise of what he wanted me to do was essentially get rid of the spiritual affliction through these Hindu modalities, while at the same time he would be praying for me from a distance and trying to send me positive energy. And this actually didn't work, because a couple of days later he calls me, he said, hey, you need to come back into my office, because for the first time in 17 years, it's not working for you. And so you could imagine, my response. I'm like, here we go again. Someone else who just doesn't know what to do with me, just feeling hopeless again. So go back into his office, and he goes, I think I know what to do. I think I know what the problem is. And I go, what's the problem? And he goes, we need to find out. And he said, I want you to wear this t-shirt for 7 days straight. I don't want you to take it off once, but I want you to wear the same t-shirt for 7 days in a row. You can only take it off when you shower, but put it straight back on. Sleeping, gym, everything, I had to wear this t-shirt. And so I went home and I found a random t-shirt just to wear for 7 days straight for this, process. And after the 7 days of like literally smelling like I hadn't showered in a week, I go back to him and he goes, okay. He goes, Jamie, we're going to start the process. But this is a very, very intense process. So he brings me into this room where in his office, he has like this room with all these Hindu gods. And I'm talking these massive statues. There's turmeric on the ground. There's these Indian spices, garlic, lemon, lime. It's like a Hindu temple, you could say. And he basically cuts the t-shirt in half and keeps half for himself and gives half to me. And he goes, all I want you to do is I want you to blow on this t-shirt gently like this. And then at the same time, he said he's going to be in the corner waving around an orange scarf and doing some chanting and praying. So I'm just sitting there with my t-shirt in my hands. And right before he says go, he asked me to put a piece of my hair, a piece of my fingernail, and spit into this t-shirt. And I'm like, okay, that's weird, but sure. And looking back in hindsight, this is full-on witchcraft he's getting me to do. And he's in the corner chanting all these names. He's calling on the Hindu gods. I forgot their names. He's calling on Muhammad. He's calling on Buddha. He's calling on Jesus. And he's trying to summon something. And I'm just there thinking this guy's an absolute spinner. Like nothing's going to happen. He then stops me and he goes, Jamie, the process isn't working, but I need you to try one more time because you have to have full intent on getting whatever is inside of you out of you. So I'm like, all right, here we go. So I start blowing on this t-shirt again and he's waving around his scarf and I'm thinking, all right, let's actually do this properly. And so I'm blowing on this t-shirt and I'm like, get these things out of me, get these things out of me, get these things out of me. And after a few minutes goes past, all of a sudden, the bottom right corner of my t-shirt, which is just a cotton t-shirt from industry, fingernail hair spit inside of it, starts to light on fire. I kid you not. And I'm like, what on earth is going on? Because I'm holding this t-shirt. I'm not doing nothing besides what I told you before. The master sees my t-shirt burning. He jumps on the t-shirt. The t-shirt starts throwing him around the room and he starts screaming in pain. All of a sudden, he turns his forearm over and there's like a black burn on his forearm, like a cigarette mark almost. And he starts screaming and he's like, it's attacking me. He's like, get this thing in the jar. And so he's trying to put this t-shirt into a glass jar, but he keeps flinging himself back. Like I'm literally witnessing this with my own eyes. It was nuts. And I go outside the room because he goes, it's too dangerous in here. And then I hear him screaming from the room. And then basically we go to his prayer room. His office. In his office, he's like huffing and puffing. He's like, Jamie, he's like, in 17 years, I have never in my entire life seen such a demonic spirit in anyone besides you. We have to act fast because you've got demons in you and we have to do another exorcism in a few days' time. And you might be thinking, oh no, this sounds so scary. But if you think about my position at the time, this was the first person to ever realize what was wrong with me. And so I felt a great sense of relief and I would just simply do whatever this man told me to do because finally I had an answer. So he goes, what we need to do is this. In a couple of days' time, we have to do a second exorcism, but it's not going to be easy. He goes, I need you to buy protective materials for this exorcism because if you don't have these materials on you, the demons will essentially kill you from the inside out. They'll burn your throat and create a black burn all the way up into your mouth. That's the way he described it. And I said, okay, well, how do I protect myself? And he goes, well, we have to actually make up 2 Hindu statues using the 5 elements of the earth, gold, silver, copper, iron, and bronze. He said, I can help you source all of these raw materials besides the gold. And I'm like, wait, so you want me to get some gold to protect myself? He goes, yes. I go, how much gold do you want me to get? He goes, 200 grams. I'm like, okay. And he goes, look, this is very important because when we do this next exorcism, if you don't have these statues on you, the demons will literally kill you. So you need to have them as protection. I'm like, look, man, I've seen it. I've seen what I just saw. In my head, I was like, I don't care. I'll pay whatever it takes, but I'm going to do this. As I'm leaving, he goes, oh, before you leave, listen to this. He turns the knob of the room that we were just in doing the first exorcism. And as he opens a door, I hear this like electrical buzzing from the room, like a zzz sound come from the room I was just in with the spirit that just came out of me or whatever. And he goes, hear that? That's a spirit. But I need you to take this spirit in a jar, put it in a plastic bag, and then dispose of it somewhere in the rural suburbs of Melbourne. I'm like, what are you talking about, bro? He's like, you have to take it with you. So he makes me take this spirit in a jar in a plastic bag, put it in my car. And so I drove an hour and a half outside Melbourne, tried to find a bin to put this spirit in, but there wasn't around any houses. And I didn't even know where I was going to go. So I found some park. There was no bins there. I found some bush. There was no bins there. So I'm like, screw this. Like, I'm just going to chuck in this person's bin. I'm sorry, but I'm out of here. And I didn't know the spiritual world at that time. I had no idea. I thought like the demon was going to kill me as I was driving. So I just disposed of it and I just gapped it. Anyway, I then got my phone and I'm like, all right, where do I get this 200 grams of gold from? But how much is it going to cost me? And so I go on Google. And do you know how much 200 grams of gold was in $17,000. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I did see the demon come out of me and I saw the burning and I saw, yeah, I'll do it. And so I literally went to the nearest store that sold gold. I bought 200 grams worth. I just paid $17,000. Go into his office. He does a prayer of it and he goes, cool. Come back in a few days' time. I'm going to make 2 Indian statues out of this and we're going to do the exorcism. So a few days goes past and I'm thinking I could have just got scammed, but you know what? Like, in the position I was in, I'll do anything. I was desperate. I truly was. As funny as it might sound to people, I was really desperate. And I go back to this man's clinic, you could call it. And he gets me to basically wear all white. He gets me to bring some yellow and red flowers, turmeric, limes, and those really long cylinder glass jars. About 3 of them. He then asked me to buy, you know those Alkalife 1.5 liter bottles from Coles? He gets me to buy like 5 of them as well to his office. And I just remember like going to this guy's office and thinking to myself, man, like, I don't know, like I could die today because I saw what happened last time. I don't know what I'm in for, but just, I hope I'm protected by whoever's out there. And so I go into his office. He goes, James, that's my real name, by the way. He goes, James, this is the most important day of your life. We're going to get all these demons out and I've made the statues. And he shows me the statues. And they're just these, I don't know, just statues. They're gold color. And apparently he put the gold into the statues. So we go into his prayer room and he goes, we're going to do the same thing, but it's going to be a bit different. I want you to hold the jar in front of you and I want you to put a fingernail, hair and spit into this jar. I said, okay, so I did that. He goes, I then want you to blow into the jar to make the vapor fall on the walls of the jar. So I did that. That was it. And then he gave me these Indian spices to eat so that, like, I don't know what it was for, but it was for the process. And he said, what I want you to do for this exorcism is you're going to have the statues in your pocket so you're fully protected for the rest of your, for this session. And I want you to start drinking as much water as you can until you feel like you need to vomit. And once you vomit, you're going to vomit out the demons and you're going to be protected from the statues and they're all going to be out. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I start sculling this water and I'm 1 bottle down, 2 bottles down. I think on the 3rd or 4th Alkalife bottle, these massive ones, I'm like, I need to vomit. So I lean over and I vomit. And he said to me, once you vomit, you're going to hear crying and screaming noises come from the jar. Once you hear that, close the lid, give it to me, and I'll take care of it. So I vomited. I don't know what came out, probably just water. I closed the jar. I heard some sound. I'm like, okay, here you go. And do you know what happened the moment this guy touched the jar? As I give him the jar, right, transferring the jar with my hands, the moment this guy touches the jar, a flame of fire lights up inside the jar and bursts the glass lid from the bottom up. I kid you not. And I'm like, what is going on? And then the same thing happens. He's like on the floor. He's trying to he's trying to close the lid of this jar to keep it shut, but it's already broken. And he's like, he's screaming again. And he's like, help. He's like, go get the Indian statues from my office, quick. So I go run in there. I come back in the room. He's like, no, that's the wrong one. I'm like, okay, go back into the office, get more. He's trying to spit on this into this jar. He's trying to pour water into it. He's swearing at it. bro. It was just like it was a movie. I'm not going to lie to you. So then he goes, get out of the room. You're too vulnerable in here. So I'm like, okay, I get out of the room. And then after he's done screaming and everything, he's like, okay, let me check your pulse. Let me look around you. He's like, you're healed. I'm like, okay, I'm healed. He goes, yeah, they're all out. I can feel your pulse. There's no black line around you anymore. You're healed. I'm like, okay. And he goes, we have one more thing to do. I'm like, oh, here we go, bro. How much money do you want from me? He goes, now what we have to do is we have to go and find a beach with very deep water and do a Hindu prayer and then throw both of the statues into the water, making sure it's deep water for you to be protected for the rest of your life. I'm like, okay. So we go to like St. Kilda Beach. We're walking around for an hour trying to find deep enough water. We couldn't find it. He goes, where else can we go? I go, let's go to Altona Beach. So we go to Altona Beach and he goes, yep, here we go. Here's good water. We do a prayer. And yeah, I launched the statues into the ocean. And then I was like, all right, I'm healed. And he goes, yep, cool. Thanks. Good stuff. See you later. And I remember feeling okay for a bit after that. I think I was just kind of like placeboing myself into feeling better. But a couple of hours after this session, I was like, oh no, I feel really sick. I need to vomit, but I haven't got the statues on me. What if there are still things inside of me we didn't get out, but I can't vomit? And I go, hey, I want to vomit. What do I do? And he goes, I'll have to think about it. Give me till Monday. I'm like, screw this guy. So after this whole ordeal with this Hindu spiritual healer master, I kind of was obviously still searching for answers, even though I felt even more hopeless than before. But the positive out of this experience, although this guy probably scammed me, he probably took the gold for himself, was that I now knew that this whole problem that I had been facing was demonic. And I want to make one thing very clear. I never believed in demons before. I never believed in angels or any of these weird spiritual beings. I believed in the universe, but not demons. And so once I was quite convinced that this was a demonic thing, I was like, okay, cool. And following this whole Indian experience, I ended up getting even worse nighttime attacks. So I'd basically be woken up as I was every single night with this stabbing in my heart, with this really weird chest pain. And so there was this one night, I remember I was with my housemate and I just could not sleep. I was being attacked in my heart. I was being attacked just nonstop, hour after hour. I could not sleep. I was up for 6 hours. And I asked my housemate to stay with me for that night, and they did. And this night was particularly weird because the TV was going on and off. It was flickering. All these weird things were happening. And I just remember thinking to myself, okay, instead of going on Google and searching how to cure intrusive thoughts or physical pain in my body or OCD or any of these things, I actually started searching up demonic spiritual attacks at night, how to heal them. And I remember this one video came up on YouTube and it was this woman and she said, hey guys, I've actually had a lot of experience in these spiritual attacks at night. I want you guys to try this thing. It will surprisingly help you all. And she goes, what I want you to do is go to your app store and type in the Bible. And I'm like, here we go. Some freaking Christian trying to convert me into their religion. I already went to a Catholic school. I don't want this at all. Here we go. Here's some other preacher trying to convert me. But I'm like, you know what? Like, what do I have to lose? So I get this Bible app and I download it. And then she goes, what I want you guys to do is I want you to play the Bible, any part of the Bible, out loud and try and sleep and see what happens. She had this like cheeky smirk on her face when she said it. I'm like, oh, you're telling me that I've been up for 6 hours and I've been stabbed. I've even had to tell my mum, I think I'm dying. I love you. Goodbye. The TV's flicking on and off. All these weird things are happening. And what? Some audio book of some random book is going to heal my sleep. So I'm like, oh, I've tried it. And so I think it was Matthew I started playing. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Put my head on the pillow. All of a sudden, it's the next day. And I wake up and I'm like, wait, what? And I run into my housemate's room. I'm like, what? I was up for 6 hours. What made me go to sleep? And she goes, Jamie, you would not believe this. The craziest thing happened. The moment the Bible started playing out loud, you fell asleep straight away. And I'm like, whoa. And this really started a massive shift in my mind. I was like, wait a second, maybe this whole Bible, Christian, Jesus thing has some power to it. Because let's not forget, I just experienced full-on Hindu astrology exorcism with flying t-shirts and burning and this guy screaming in pain from demons biting his arm and weird sounds and having to drop evil spirits in people's bins in Melbourne. Like, I've been through it all at this point. But you're telling me this book is powerful in some way, shape, or form? And the next week, I remember, because my friend, Connie, shout out to Connie, she was always trying to distract me from myself, essentially. So she used to invite me to social events and just try to keep my mind off things. And she ended up saying to me one night, hey, I'm going to this Korean barbecue dinner, but someone can't make it. Do you want to just come along to fill the gap? And I'm like, yeah, whatever, sure. And I go to this Korean barbecue, and there are these guys there that I've never met. And all of a sudden, they start talking about God. I'm like, what's this God thing about? And I used to get triggered by Jesus, by God. I didn't know why. I just hated hearing about it. I could listen to people talking about Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism. I had no problem. But when it came to Jesus Christ, I didn't like hearing it. I didn't know why. And they're like, yeah, man, like, what have you been going through? And I start telling them a bit about what I've been going through. And they go, man, like, can I ask you something? I go, yeah. And they go, do you want us to bring you to church this Sunday? And I'm like, oh, Christians, bro. I'm like, yes. And so that Sunday, I remember dressing up all, formal and fancy. I had this long coat on. I'm like, I need to wear leather shoes. I come back to school. I was considering wearing a tie. I don't know what I was thinking, but I'm like, I'm in a church, this temple, this ancient place where the priest is going to be in, and I'm going to have to do confession and eat this bread and stuff, and I'm scared. And I remember they walked me into this building, and I'm like, why are you guys taking me into like a music festival or something? I didn't know there was a music festival in Melbourne. And they're like, no, it's not what it is, but just, let's see what happens. And this was the moment that truly, truly changed my life. They opened the auditorium doors, and we were actually at a church called Planet Shakers in Melbourne. And they opened the auditorium doors. And I just remember stepping foot into this auditorium. And the moment I stepped foot into this place, I literally, physically get struck by something that enters into my body, and I just start weeping. And it was the most peaceful, loving feeling that I had been looking for my entire life. It was this fulfillment and this warm comfort that I'd never, ever experienced in my entire life before. And I then started to hear this audible voice. And the voice said to me 3 things. It said, this is where you belong. These are your people. And this is where you're going to get healed. And I'm just weeping. I don't know what's going on. And then my friends, usher me to my seat in the front right of the stage. And I'm just there and I'm like, what is happening? And all these people are just worshiping Jesus. And I just did not understand what was happening in that moment, but I'm just crying. And at the end of it, the pastor said, hey, like, if you're someone that's never given their life to Jesus, I'd love you to raise your hand and do the salvation altar call and the prayer. And he starts saying this prayer, and I just recite it with my whole heart. And then he says, I'd love everyone to put their hand up to come to the front. And I just went to the front. I just knew that something huge had shifted in my life. Like, yeah, essentially I'd found God. I didn't know what was going on at that moment. And I remember, like, I walked to the front and everyone's clapping, and then, like, we go to the back and we do the kind of new person's faith explained sort of thing. And they teach us what it means to follow Jesus. And I'm just all in. Like, I can't explain the magnitude of the spiritual encounter I had when I went to church for the first time. And since that day, I was just all in. I just knew that I had met the one true living God. And at a rapid pace, just everything started to heal. I then went home and I started researching, like, demons and, like, Christianity and Jesus and all these other keywords. And then I found these 2 videos of these 2 ladies that literally went through almost an identical thing that I went through, where they were doing Reiki healing. and they got possessed by demons. And then the way out was through deliverance through Jesus Christ. And they both said the exact same thing. They both told me exactly how they got into it through Reiki. A spiritual transaction occurred where it was essentially demonic possession, and they got out of it through deliverance through Jesus Christ. I was like, okay, I need to do this. So I started typing on Google, like, Christian Deliverance Melbourne, because I was living in Melbourne during that time. And I find this pastor from a ministry called Divine Intercession. His name is Pastor Joseph, who has a deliverance ministry. So I contact him and I'm like, hey, I need your help. I really need your help. And then a couple of days later, we arrange a call and I tell him everything. And he's like, cool. And he goes, give me a few days, I'll get back to you. And I just remember, like, the transformation had already started to occur. But I'd say 2 days after this first initial call with Pastor Joseph, I wake up one morning, I'm just like, wait a second, like, I feel like I'm healed. Like, I don't know why this morning I just feel like I'm 50% healed. And I get on a call with him the next day and he goes, how you been? And I go, yeah, I've been good, Pastor. I don't know what happened, but a few days ago I woke up and I just feel like I'm 50% healed. And he goes, I know why that is. And I'm like, why? And he goes, because my team and I have been praying for you. I'm like, excuse me, what? Praying? Like, you're clapping your hands, and what does that mean? And he goes, prayer is powerful. And I go, whoa. It was just so weird because I'd never experienced anything like this in my entire life. And in 2 Corinthians 5:17, it says, therefore, those who are in Christ are made a new creation. And that's so true, because I really did feel like I was made into a brand new person in that particular time of my life, where everything just started to fade away. I then started to do deliverance. So I basically went back up to Sydney, where I'm from, and I moved back up just to get rid of my old life in Melbourne with all the partying and the drinking and stuff and the sleeping around. Went back to Sydney and I started doing deliverance, and Pastor Joseph got me to do this 7-day deliverance, self-deliverance. And I was, I had to renounce things. I had to break soul ties. I had to cut generational curses. I had to repent of these things. And then I had to do a bit of deliverance on myself. And so this just began a journey of my own deliverance, you could say. But I didn't know how many things in my life, even mundane things that I did, had opened me up to demonic influence. And so, yeah, it was crazy. Like, I had to denounce all the new age, and that took some time to get rid of. I had to denounce the women I slept with, and that took a bit of time. I had to denounce many generational curses in my family. Then I went to see Pastor Joseph in person. We did some in-person deliverance, and I was saying all these things I had no idea about. I was vomiting, screaming, shouting. I was saying that my name was Jezebel. All these crazy just manifestations, just getting these things out of me over time. And then, yeah, I just cleaned up my life. I just had to stop sleeping around. That was a big part of my life back then. I just had to stop. So I went celibate. You could say I just started this entire new life, and I truly became born again in every context of the word. That also began a transformation in my content, where I started to stop doing all these pranks, stop doing all these dirty jokes and these sorts of obscene videos, to then trying to slowly purify my content, you could say, to make it more holy and more appealing to a broader audience. And yeah, it was just such a beautiful time of my life where I just had to really, really just become sanctified all over again and start everything from square one. I then, started to, I found Dan and Victoria from Deliverance Down Under, and Dan and the crew and myself did even more deliverance because I still needed more. So I'd go up to Brisbane to see them, and would sometimes be going like 7 hours. I remember our first session was. It was nuts, but just the transformation that happened every time I did a session or would, get rid of these things that were inside of me was just like undeniable. My OCD, my chronic OCD that I had my entire life just went away completely. We casted that demon out. My unfulfillment, my lack of purpose, my depression completely went away as well. We had to denounce all the stuff I did with the Indian healer. We had to denounce all the stuff that I used to do with the Reiki, with the energy healing, with the spiritual breathwork. So just everything. And I guess my life just changed so much for the better. And it's funny because I do see people say, oh, but how come, like maybe it was just a feeling, an emotion that you felt in church that time or during deliverance. And how do you know it was real? Transformation has to have a catalyst. It's like you get lean because you went to the gym. It had to have come from somewhere. This personal transformation has come and sustained itself for many, many years after the initial encounter. That doesn't just happen with a feeling. Feelings are fleeting. So it's like this pivotal point in my life was drawn out until this day as I'm sitting here in front of you, where the OCD is still gone. The depression is still gone. You know, the lack of fulfillment, lack of purpose is still gone. At the moment, you know, it's 2025. I've been celibate for 3 years. I'm waiting for marriage to find the right woman. And yeah, I've stopped swearing. I've stopped drinking. I've stopped doing drugs, sleeping around, obviously. My content's cleaned up a lot. Like, I'm doing new stuff now. I've now got a Christian channel called More Jamie Zoo, where I'm doing evangelism work with some of the guys from Deliverance Down Under from Brisbane, just kind of all the Christian brothers and sisters around. And my relationship with God has just become so profound that I just want everyone to know the grace that Jesus gives you if you find him, and if you're willing to adapt your free will into being open to it, you know? So yeah, it's just incredible. And I also had to go through a bit of a journey where I had to find out what was true in faith. You know, a lot of people that I'm around believe that deliverance is fake, or it's all a show, or it's actors, that healings, gifts and prophecies and miracles and stuff like that is all fake. So I had to go through all that to understand why cessationists believe that, and why, you know, myself and so many others know it's all real, because I've experienced it tangibly myself. And really want to encourage all of you guys out there that may be going through a hard time, or you might be a believer, you might not be a believer, to just really draw into Jesus. He's truly our only hope. You see the world crumbling before our eyes. Society is just going the wrong way. Like, I'm scared to have kids one day because they might turn out being 72 genders. It's like, we all know what's going on. I just really hope that those out there watching that may be stuck in that trap of chasing money, chasing fame, status, materialism, women, to just tell you guys that I truly, truly, truly had all that, and it amounted to nothing. And just like King Solomon realized in his last days, that a life of materialism and a life of worldliness is nothing. And the only thing that really matters in life is worshiping God. I guess I'll just leave this last bit with a prayer for all of you guys. So, dear Lord Jesus, I just thank you for this time I've been able to share my testimony to the world, Lord. I just pray that this video reaches the right individuals that can relate to what I've personally been through, and that it touches a part of them that really just encourages them to find you and seek you further, Lord. I just pray that anyone watching this that is going through a hard time just presses more into you, Lord, and really seeks that relationship with you over religion. We don't want that religious spirit circling in faith. We know that we're all sinners. We know that you died for our sins. We know that we're all forgiven in your name, Jesus. And we just pray that every single person in the audience watching this really opens up their hearts, opens up their minds to you, Lord, and your goodness, and experiences the joy of the Lord that I've been blessed to have. And Lord, if a wretched sinner like me can find faith, and if someone that's had my past and my sin can become clean and washed as white as snow due to the price that you paid for all of humanity, then anyone out there can. And no situation out there is too far gone. You know, Ephesians 6:12 says that we do not battle against flesh and blood, but against principalities and rulers of darkness. And I just pray that people understand out there that there is a spiritual world going on that we can't see, and these things are very real. And that by continually trying to look for answers in the physical or the mental, we're completely not showing any focus or getting rid of the ideology that there is a spiritual world, which is very, very real. And I just pray that everyone out there that hasn't sort of found that faith and come to the realization that this spiritual world that we can't see is very potent and powerful, and that you exist, and that you are the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords in this space, that they do open up their hearts and minds to find you and the truth, which is you, Jesus. I thank you, Lord, once again for this opportunity to pray over my brothers and sisters out there, and I just hope that this really helps them in their walk with you, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.